Hello, everyone. This is Lee Andrews with another Live with Lee. And today I'm pleased and thrilled and honored to have Master Certified Coach Brenda Holley. And I will talk more about her in just a second. And you know the questions will be coming fast and furious, even shorter. I do want to introduce myself for those who have not been to a Live with Lee before. These are live sessions with people who can help us through our career, whether it is to change that career, move forward in our career, not jump off a ledge in search of that career, whatever it is. Akathame is an organization that helps other companies, other organizations outsource their recruitment process or improve their talent management and retention and succession processes. So let's get right into it. So Brenda, this time goes fast. We've got quite a few questions to show you. So the first question is, what do you want people to know about you? So I've already got the first question up here, but what do you want people to know about you before we talk about this particular topic?
Absolutely. I am happy to spend my days working with professionals and entrepreneurs to clarify their goals and build their businesses. And sometimes that includes finding a new job. I have 34 years in career search, so I'm uniquely qualified to do that. So it's professional coaching and career coaching. That's the short version.
Yeah, and you're also not just an ICF coach, you're a Master Certified ICF Coach. What goes into that? I know there's like 500 hours for other coaches. What is involved for a master level?
A master level involves jumping through several hoops. My master certification is not through ICF. I have an ICF certification, a Martha Beck certification, and my master certification is from Bosch University. Oh. So what it's done, Lee, is combined three different modalities. May sound confusing, but honestly, I have a full tool chest because of it.
Yeah. Very helpful. So I feel as though I should be laying on a couch during this session, but we're going to try doing this sitting upright.
Okay, we'll start sitting.
So one of the things that you shared with me, many moons ago, about a year ago, actually, and it's really stuck with me, is one of your customers, you said, one of your clients, you had to help them understand why they weren't happy in this world. And it was a disconnect between their social self and their essential self. Can you tell us what that is?
Yes. So there's a couple of things around that. The essential self is who we are at our essence. It is the traits, the likes and dislikes, our basic personality. It's our genes. It's who we would be if we were born rich or poor, and if we were from Bangkok or London or Newark. It's essential. It will be with us for the rest of our lives until our lives are no more.
Wow.
I know. Basic personality. The social self. Take your age and subtract 2. Whatever that number is when your social self started forming. I think sometimes it kicks in a little bit earlier, and I'll talk more about that later. But the social self forms from pressure from really important people like your peers, your parents, your priest, your pope, the preacher, the principal, people that are important in your life. Our social self guides us to not upset society. It is very necessary, and human babies are dependent on adults for longer than any other mammal. So the social self is exceptionally important for us as we go through life. I want to tell you a couple of things about the characteristics of the social self and the essential self, because they're quite interesting. And I want you to think about work behaviors you've seen in people when I share with you about the social self. The social self is conflict avoidance based. It's imitative. It's hardworking. It conforms. And our verbal control center is in our social self. It needs to be, because the social self says, oh, please don't say that.
Well, that
Back
could
up.
be one challenge.
Okay, maybe I think you have a beautiful alignment, by the way, with your essential self. So the social self does control what comes out of our mouth, hopefully, some of the time. The essential self, oh, wow. It's fun-loving, it's playful, it's spontaneous, and it's attraction-based. So, for example, your essential self might say, oh, I want those pants in purple. And your social self will say, or mine would, you'll look like you have 7 eggplants stuffed down the back of your head. No, you do not want those pants in purple. Get them in black, sister, or don't get them at all. It would be wise for me to pay attention to my social self in that particular case. But as you can see, it's the spontaneity, it's the childlike essence of our essential self that makes it so lovely. If you have a comment that you want to say that's coming from your essential self, sometimes it will come out like a blurt. And you're like, oh, where did that come from? Your essential self. Pay attention to those blurts. There's a reason that they're coming out. There's some truth in them, even though they can be a little unfortunate at times.
So what I'm hearing is that people who have more self-control in public are very aware of social self.
They're very aware of social self, and we have to have it, Lee. I mean, otherwise we would be breaking laws, running down the street without our clothing on, and, wearing purple pants. People who don't have a well-developed social self are in prisons, literally.
Or should be.
Or should be. Both selves.
I think we've seen a lot of that over the past few years.
We have, and both selves are necessary. Neither one is good nor bad. It's the balance, the beautiful balance.
Okay. All right. Well, that makes sense. That's a good thing to know. So, what is it? I'm trying to pop up the right question that we had here. So, what is it that we need to know in between the social and the essential in managing our career? How does that apply?
So how it applies in managing our career, it really is the key. So if you are having a war going on in your body about, you got to do this, but I want to do this, but you have to be responsible. No, I want to be creative. It's your social self and your essential self waging that war. Number one, we need to understand that we have those two selves and how they both operate. When we understand that, we can get them to cooperate a lot better. I help clients know that they have both those people inside of them, and it can feel kind of crowded sometimes. And I also help them to get them to work together. We can absolutely honor our essential self while doing what we need to do to take care of ourselves in this world. We don't have to always make our living doing essential self activities, but it's important to include them in our life, and that's where we can get off track.
So that story, I remember the story of the gentleman who clearly had an imbalance in his social and essential self. Do you remember that story? I think it was a printer or a designer or artistry.
I do.
Can you share that story with us on how you actually helped that client align? Because he did get a job with your coaching.
Yeah, he did. And he's a wonderful guy. We still stay in touch. Basically, this guy really is a creative. He is a great illustrator. He had a job in the printing industry. And there was enough connection there that it satisfied some of his creative desires. I think we all know the printing industry is in a contraction state right now. Makes me a little sad, but it will probably continue to be for a while.
Yeah.
Forever, maybe. So he was looking for something somewhere else. I introduced the concept of the social and the essential self to him. This was pre-pandemic. Actually, it was late in 2019. We were in a coffee shop. He actually did the forehead slap. Oh my God, that's what it is. I'm not honoring my essential self. So I got him to start drawing and posting on Instagram and keeping his notebooks, because he really was lovely in his skills, but he wasn't doing them. Now, they weren't something that he could make a living out of right now, but honoring them was one thing. He actually got a job in a company that still has some connection to what he was doing before with a different medium besides print paper. And he's still posting. I still see them. I talked to him just last week, but I see his posts. And he told me that it's been remarkable, the difference that has been made by allowing himself that creative outlet and knowing what the heck was going on with him.
It's kind of like if you don't have a hobby, if you don't have other things outside of work, how do you identify? And you begin to identify only on that social self level, and you ignore that essential self level. And do you think, it sounds to me like I can think of at least a few dozen people right offhand that are depressed because they've lost this connection to their social self or their essential self, because they're working so hard to live in that social self that there's that imbalance. I wonder if that's not a really big issue in the job search. So if we're putting 10 to 12 hours a day in finding a job and sending out resumes, and we're doing nothing but getting rejected, and that's all we're doing day after day after day, you're completely ignoring the essential self. So there's no self-care, in other words.
None.
So yeah, that's a pretty profound and so that actually leads me to the next question, are the implications. So if we don't acknowledge these differences, I see a great risk for depression, even becoming clinically depressed.
Yeah.
Is that a fair statement?
It is a fair statement. I think we live in a society that is so logical brained that we don't even honor the inner knowing that we have. And our essential self kind of lives in that section of the inner knowing, Lee. Right. So none of our life is balanced if we don't know about and honor and allow those two to exist side by side with each other. It impacts our career. It impacts our life. Our essential self knows where we want to go. Our social self supplies the method to get there.
Oh.
Here's a great little story for you. I wanted a small condo in Santa Fe, and you know this about me. It was a visceral longing. It made absolutely no sense, which my essential self was happy to remind me of consistently. But my heart lived in Santa Fe, and I thought my body should join it, at least on some occasions. And my essential self agreed that that was important for my heart and body to get together at times.
Wow.
So my essential self established that desire. My social self kicked in, contacted a real estate agent, got the money set up, talked to the husband, found the condo, did the negotiation, and signed the paperwork. All the while screaming, Brenda, you are crazy. But they worked together. Why? I acknowledged the essential self. If we don't listen to it, Lee, that's when we get into trouble. They will work together once you get them talking. And keep in mind who's in charge.
Right.
You're in charge.
So it's that, is it the essential self or the social self that houses reality, common sense? So you have this emotional tug to move to a certain location or accept a specific job, and you might not want that job, or you really want to move there without a job. I mean, where does common sense and practicality play? Where does that come into play?
Social self.
Social self. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's good.
Social self is really nothing but emotion. That's just raw emotion.
It's your core.
Yeah.
It's what you love, what you like, and who you are. It's the feelings. Social self is more about the brain. We need both of them.
So let's move this into practical application in the job search. So many people, they're struggling with, income. They're struggling with maintaining a lifestyle. They don't have that job. They've got to find that job, blah, 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 blah. So they are stuck in that social self out of preservation, self-preservation, right? And they get into that depressive point. What would you recommend if they're looking at themselves, because at this point they start looking at themselves as being failures. They start going into that imposter syndrome. They start to feel as though it's just hopeless and helpless. And so does a conversation with the social self and the essential self come into play at that point, or is it too late?
No, it's not too late. It should come into play at that point, yes. And there are several clues that we can use to engage those two. And you can also know when they're not communicating, when those needs aren't being met. I totally get it. My social self runs my show most of the time. But I'm quiet enough to listen to the other one that it feels like it's being heard.
Okay. So are there things, can you give us like one or two things that we might be able to do to snap us out of that? Like what can we do to shift or to even acknowledge the fact that, hey, my social self needs to take a break, and I need to, put the job search aside. I need to retool. I need to get some space. How do we know that we're in that domination of social and completely eliminating the essential?
I think most of us are in the domination of social and elimination of essential. So let me tell you what we can do to align them. How about that?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Here's what we need to pay attention to. Pay attention when your essential self says yes. You get this fizzy feeling. You feel alive. You feel like even your cells are tingling. You can get that about a job opportunity, by the way. You know when it's saying yes. I was talking to a client this morning who had gotten a job offer. She was telling me what she thought. I said, tell me how you feel. How do you feel about it? So honor and pay attention to how you feel. We don't usually do that. We're too busy ramrodding what we think. Pay attention to where you lose track of time. What takes you to a place that you're not even aware of the time? When we're highly interested in something, time flies, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Next thing is who you're relaxed with. Oh my, that's a wonderful thought, isn't it? Who do you feel good with? When you're comfortable in your own skin and you're comfortable with another person, think about this from a job standpoint. Follow that trail when you're interviewing. How do you feel about the person you're talking with? And Lee, I want to flesh that out a minute in the in the other question, there's a way to know that that's occurring for you. But how do you feel at work? How do you feel about the interview process?
Well,
Do you feel comfortable? Listen. The last thing really is just that paying attention. And this goes really organically into how do you know when those needs aren't being met? So unless you have something else there, I'd like to make sure we go in and grab that. Pay attention, exactly. Pay attention, folks.
so it's paying attention to self. Do you think that why do you think that we don't pay attention to our inner voice, which really is that essential self?
It is the essential self, and I think the reason that we don't is because we're in Western society, and we have been conditioned that it's all in the mind, and that the wisdom in our bodies really isn't that wise.
Yeah, no,
But it is.
I agree. I agree.
It's a combination.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So we've got just about 9 minutes left. That went fast, right? So next 9 minutes, what I would like to do is you offered to go through the change cycle with us.
Yes.
So let's go through that. I'm going to flash that on the screen.
Okay.
And whoops, there we go.
Okay.
So this is something that you use with your clients. Is that right?
Absolutely, Lee. It's a basic coaching tool.
Okay.
It's so appropriate to job change, job loss, making next decisions on a job. So if you look to the left, you'll see the words, kind of small letters, that says catalytic event. Okay.
Yeah.
The change cycle starts when we have a catalytic event in our life, i.e., something big has happened that has changed literally our identity. That's big, guys. So just an example, I got new quartz countertops installed in December.
Wow.
I don't now identify myself as a new quartz countertop owner. It wasn't a catalytic event. It's new countertops. I left the staffing industry about 3 years ago. After 34 years, can we say catalytic event?
Oh, yeah.
It totally changed my thoughts about myself because I was a staffing industry executive. So one way of looking at the catalytic event, when you ask yourself, who am I? And you can no longer answer that, let's just go right into square one, death and rebirth, because that's where you've landed. So there's a mantra and some little clues I want to give you for each of these that we'll move through pretty quickly.
Okay.
Square one mantra. I don't know what the hell is going on, and that's okay. When you've gone through huge change and you feel totally disoriented, you thought everything was going well, you had it all together, and all of a sudden, you feel like an infant bumbling around in a land you've never seen because your whole life has changed. Your concept of self has changed. This is a time for small moves. You need to be kind of quiet, listen, be still, and allow yourself to experience. Death and rebirth may not sound like a lot of fun, but there's a couple of things I want to share with you. It is the space in the change cycle where we can remold our identity because it's all gone. You get to become who you can really be. One of my favorite, if not my favorite quote, really sits in square one. You guys have probably heard this before, and I'm saying the name wrong. It's Masahide. He was a 17th century Japanese poet and samurai. Strange combo, admittedly. His statement is, barns burnt down, Now I can see the moon.
Yeah.
That is square one encapsulated.
That reminds me of people who are in recovery who had to lose everything in order to get a fresh start, to become who they were always meant to be.
Precisely.
It's very hard for people who haven't been in that space to understand that. But getting rid of everything in order to become who you were meant to be is a big shift. That's a big psychological shift.
And isn't it like death and rebirth, Lee?
It is. It is death and rebirth. It is absolutely that. Yeah.
Precisely. So it's small moves. If someone is going through job loss, looking for a job, at first, they need to settle, like the recovery example that you mentioned. Settle into it. Then you can move into square two, dreaming and scheming. It is an action square instead of a small move square. Here's the mantra. There are no rules, and that's okay. We've just gotten into a new area. There are no rules, and that is okay. Here's what happens in square two. You start having little ideas, wispy little dreams. You start thinking about certain things more. You start jotting down things. Next thing you know, you're changing your hair and your clothes, because that's part of change. And you're writing down blueprints for what you're going to do. It's action. Square two is where you are literally first dreaming and then scheming as it becomes clearer. It's a beautiful area to take your first steps in your new life. Job seekers, you're going to spend some time in dreaming and scheming, and that's okay. It is okay. There are no rules. We move on to the hero saga. It's another big action-oriented square. It's when we take all of our dreams and schemes, all of our blueprints, and we start implementing them. It's pretty normal to have those fail. Actually, it's very normal. If you're looking for a job and you're feeling frustrated, this is where I want you to take heart. If you've ever read The Lord of the Rings or watched any Indiana Jones movies, those are hero saga. The hero takes on impossible task after impossible task, and he or she defies death many times. They ultimately come out victorious. We love those because that's how we identify our life being, hopefully without some of the death-defying, but we feel like we are in a hero saga of our own. You certainly feel that way during job search.
Yeah.
You try and you try, and it doesn't hit. Here's the mantra. This is much worse than I expected. And that's okay, because it is, guys. I mean, I found this to be so true in launching my business. This is so much worse than I expected. And that's okay. Yes, it's sometimes hard to get that last part out, but it is okay.
I felt that way about my nose job too, just to say, yeah, that was tough. Yeah.
So what I want to say to you job seekers is keep trying. We learn to succeed by failing. The dreams are realized by action. Keep taking action. What's happening is normal. It's not you. It's normal. So let's move on to square four, because I know we're getting time tight here. Square four is the promised land. Doesn't that sound beautiful? And it is. I encourage you to go there as quickly as you can, except you can't control it, and to stay there as long as you can. In the promised land of jobs, what you want to do is take small moves, tiny little tweaks, mind the store. No need to reinvent the proverbial wheel, because you're where you want to be. The mantra for square four: everything is changing, and that's okay, because it is. Everything is always changing. The longer we can stay in square four, whether it's career or in life, the better it is. But guys, life is full of change, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lee, I'm going to
A
ask.
lot of
Yeah, I don't want to be at keeping on with the time at the end.
So we're good. We are at 30 minutes now. And so what I wanted, Brenda, this has been incredibly insightful. And I know that I'm going to get a lot of feedback from this. So, and I'm sure I'm not going to be able to answer any of their questions. How do people get a hold of you?
It's Brenda at brendaholley.com for the email. And that is Holley. My website is also inventively called brendaholley.com. So check out the website. If you email me, I will get back to you personally, and I am happy to answer any questions you have. And I offer a free 30-minute consult.
I think that's wonderful. Well, I think you just did provide a 30-minute free consult, so I think that's pretty impressive. Brenda, again, I cannot thank you enough for your time and sharing your insights. And I know that you've helped a lot of people navigate and survive the job search just by keeping them grounded and sane. And it's really difficult, I know. Yeah. And if you are out there struggling, I want to make sure that you have all the resources that you need to get through this. So if you are going to the darkest depths, please contact me. I'll make sure that you have access to any suicide hotline information or any counseling resources that you need. They're all available for you. Some of them are at no cost or very, very low cost. We know this is tough. It could be getting tougher, but we hope that the light is visible at the end of the tunnel for all of us. So please do hang in there. There is a place for your social and your essential self in this world. And I'm proof of it. And so is Brenda. So, and there are others who can help you find that path. So again, Brenda, thank you so much. And thank you to all those who joined me at Live with Lee. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.